So if we can pass on now to page 12, which the number's missing on the bottom. It's obviously the box slipped, and there's plenty more. Now it's actually basically, this is going through what we were talking about earlier on, assessment for balancing your diet with food and food supplements. And it's like we said, the main thing is, you know, most dietitians, etc., do it by logic and knowledge, all right? I mean, what we're encouraging you to do is muscle testing and dowsing, and so you can tailor what's needed to what the person's required. If you turn over the page, just that you're reminding you that you can add in chakra and colour correspondences so that you can link things across. And even, for example, if someone's got persistent constipation, immediately you should be able to home in on the type of food, you're looking at the colour, and it's also going to give you clues to other things. So it's just being able to colour code people's problems, and therefore giving you the idea actually how you go about it and dealing with it. Now, one of the things is basically, if you have somebody with a problem, is how you keep track of things. And you see on telly as well, they tell people to keep food diaries. And we know how truthful people are with food diaries. Okay, it can be useful, particularly if you suspect an intolerance to something, and or you suggested that the suspected intolerant food, you suggested that they rotate their diet every 4 or 5 days, so you can see the pattern. One thing I found as a kinesiologist was, and it's mentioned on the top of page 14, is actually looking at how people feel. So if people are really, really run down, it's a good idea for them to keep an idea, a record of how well they feel. No, what I do is traffic lights. You get a calendar and you get some coloured dots, or you use a coloured felt tip. And on a good day, you put a green dot. Or if you get a good morning, you've got a green dot. And if it's a bit iffy, you put orange or yellow. If it's a really bad day, you put red. And you get them to keep that sort of record. So you're not asking them for it's just generally how they feel. Now, when people have got chronic problems going on, this quite often the feeling is, I'm never going to get out of this. You can see it sort of stretching. Am I going to be like this for the rest of my life? Stuff. And it's very, very easy to get into that mode when you're feeling really, really not well. One of the things that this does is that over a period of a couple of months, you can actually show somebody that they're very, very slowly improving. Because the number of red dots starts to drop away and the number of orange and green increases. The other advantage is that if you can see patterns in it, and so if they're going up and down with the moon cycle, or they're going up and down if there's a woman with her menstrual cycle, you can see from the patterning of the dots is what's actually creating the problem. And so it's something they don't have to think about too much, they just have to put on the calendar. And I have found that to be one of the best ways of also helping them see that they're gradually pulling out of a problem. So if it really is really not good, it's a positive feedback thing. And even with people who think they've got it sussed, I remember dealing many, many years ago with somebody who's actually a psychologist, and a very good one, and I suggested this, and he was like, he had me. And it was like, it was so bad. I was visiting him in his house. Yes, actually in Tiverton, and I found he had a foxglove tree outside his house. It was the first time I'd ever seen one.
Foxglove tree?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Whoa, they're nice. Flowers. I'll show you on my phone. I think I've still got a picture of a foxglove tree on my phone. And he didn't think it was going to work. He felt that was going to be the rest of his life. And he did admit after about 3 months that he couldn't kid himself. He wasn't getting any better because he could see that his good days were more and his red days were less. So for long-term stuff, and even in an ordinary therapy setup, that's actually a very good way of helping people keep track of things. And all they do is when they come in with you, they bring the calendar or the diary in, and for you to look at. And usually by that time they suss things like, full moon, something like that, and they say, I never realised that. Yeah, so it's a really, really useful way, and particularly if people, for example, if people are trying to cut down their food and they manage okay some days and not other days, they can use it on that as well. That was a good day. I did it that day, and that day it all went to pot. You'll still see a pattern, and that also can be very, very useful.
Who visited that day?
Yes, exactly. All stuff like that. Yeah, it can be a very, very, it's very easy, and it's a very kind way because you're only using colour. Most people know traffic light systems, so I haven't got to explain anything complex. And I found that in all the years I was working as a kinesiologist, that's so useful.
It's amazing.
It's very simple, but it works very, very well, and sometimes a lot better. Like I said, food diaries.
They're a bit boring, aren't they?
They're a bit boring, and people don't tend to tell you about stuff that they just forget. It's not something they do deliberately. It just, and when you see that on the telly, when they really overweight people say, "I'm not doing anything," and then they've got the hidden video cam.
Oh, God!
And it completely, the fact that they raided the fridge at 10 o'clock at night and down, it is like, I didn't think that counted.
But then sensationalist TV, but is it going to help them?
Yeah, exactly.
Makes them feel guilty and shameful.
Well, the thing is, as soon as you start feeling guilty or shameful or what's going on, whether that's about the way you eat, it's about the way you look, it's about the weight you have or haven't got, as soon as you're feeding into that, that's not healing.
And actually, you might not have time to do a food diary, because I remember when I was trying to, think about what I was eating, I'd be too bloody cooking and serving it up for everybody that then by the time I'd remembered, I'd forgotten what I'd had for that last meal or the ingredients I'd put in it, all that stuff. So there is a bit of extra, it's another thing of what to do.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it's sometimes it's self-defeating. And I think you have to bring in the psychology on it and think, actually, is this helping the person? No, it's not if you're not. I think it's such an emotive issue, food and eating, that and it's very easy to get on your high horse about stuff, and it's very easy to get very what's the word? Evangelistic. It's very easy to get throat chakra about it, zealots and all that stuff, and get very, very,
It's funny though, because even if you are consciously trying not to sound like that, to the person on the receiving end, you're going to sound like that.
They hear that, which is another reason why you've got to try and talk from the heart and not from the throat, because if you're just talking about the theory of this, and you have actually got no experience of what it's like to be in the mess of trying to sort that out, it'll come over to them that you haven't got a frigging clue.
I wonder how many nutritionists are trained as counsellors as well.
Absolutely, I suspect. That's one of the biggest problems I think with dietitians in the NHS, is that it's very cut and dried and factual and whatever. It's got no basis on how actually the person's going to put that into practice. And certainly not about the emotional implications of inevitably failing at some level and how you actually do that.
So that initial talking, listening phase could be the most important thing you do with that person.
Theoretically, because it's basically, and it's understanding that even if that's something they want to achieve for themselves, it's a big ask. It's not going to be something that you can just wave a magic wand at and just fix it, because it's just too embedded, it's too ingrained. It always gives me an idea as they go to concept in Buddhism of what are called hungry ghosts, which are creatures with very, very narrow necks and very, very big tummies. But the stuff they're so hungry, but the stuff's still got to go down through the little narrow neck. And it was that, it's all the stuff here that actually stops people being able to really deal with their eating and nutrition. It's all what they've read, what they've been told, you know, what they think they should and shouldn't do. It's all you know, if you should, it's all here, and it's like it's relaxing, everything like that, so you can actually get into reality. And when people come to you, so you're talking to them from further down here and not just from here. And also realising that there's probably some stuff that necessarily can't be fixed, they just have to do their best. So in the pages after that, I couldn't resist giving you the one on butter, and then there was a little reminder at the very, very end about high fructose corn syrup, because that's going to be, as we've already discovered, and that was only me doing this 3 or 4 weeks ago, the final sort of edit of this, is that is already seriously up there.
I could not buy a jar of marmalade that did not have it in there.
Really?
Yeah. Even the Oxford traditional marmalade.
That's you got me really worried. I actually,
it was a limited choice, I must say.
But even so, because I went looking for some blackcurrant jam, which I really, really like, and the over the road where I used to buy it, of course, that's shut now. They used to have a local ladies' jam. And so I went into Sainsbury's, must have had a look at the ingredients. But I looked at most of the jams were European jams. And I know now not to touch the European jams.
Really?
You know, and so I got, you know, Sainsbury's own at 95p a shot, and I must go back and just see whether it's just sugar or whether it's got fructose in it as well.
Quite a lot of the own brand stuff, I reckon, is going to go.
It's going to go. I think it's all going to go. It's got to go that way because it's the EU directive.
Yeah, but what you'll need to do is get something that's like a boutique brand almost. You know, that's
but there's even
WI jam.
Yeah, I was going to say. So you've got to get local, because as soon as you get anybody that's making sort of vaguely en masse, then you're going to lose it because they're going to go for the EU route. Yeah, but how crazy is this that we allow the EU
I know, we don't
trash our jams?
We don't have to listen to them all the time.
To trash our jams.
Take it all on board.
You know, the government say, well, if we don't do that, our jam makers can't sell their jams in Europe.
Well, it doesn't matter. Sell the jams here.
You know, because that's what it is.
Sell the crap to
Our
Europe.
jams are ordained to have too much sugar in them.
Yeah,
because in our jams, UK jams are just sugar and fruit, nothing else. But in Europe, there's less sugar, and because there's less sugar, they've got to put other stuff in it to stabilise and whatever. So, of course, and they have to add, because there's less sugar, they have to add other things to stabilise the colour. Whereas you see, if you have high sugar, like our jams are, you don't have to add anything else because the colour stays stable. So it's like as soon as you get into European jams, you're getting stuff where it's been played around with. And it's like, and the EU says that we've now got to comply with their stuff. And the government is agreeing.
So I can't understand why they do that. It's so bloody weak.
Because they've sold their soul to Europe.
Well, it's also this like thing about Monsanto, isn't it? I mean, we've just gone in,
It just makes me so
and just got it in behind. I don't know which Europeans are behind Monsanto, because quite a few of them collect some GM stuff, but apparently, you know, we've gone in and said yes. We agree, and thinking, no! Bastards. And it's like, and this is when you, I think there was, I put a link onto a speech that Matt Damon read out from...
Oh, I read that.
But that's from an author. He read an author from
about
1984. And he read this bloke's speech. Gee, God. It was like, the speech was headed Civil Disobedience. And it was basically saying that the trouble is we're all too obedient. We let all these people tell us what we should do, whatever, and really we need to be saying no. It was actually, and it was I can't remember who the philosopher or economist was, but somebody wrote it quite a long time ago, and so it was obviously relevant then, and it sure is relevant now. And he was obviously talking about America in particular, and he was just like saying, you know, you've got to realise that the Declaration of Independence has given us this freedom, and yet we've let everybody trash it.
Big business. That's what it is. All about profit. All comes down to money.
I think the butter thing's scary.
Yeah.
I've just read that top.
Yeah, I've read that as
Oh,
well.
I did too. I didn't know that.
Wow.
But I'm now thinking, well, who let them? Didn't somebody go, ooh, what are dead turkeys? You can't do this with human beings.
I remember.
This is bizarre.
I remember Stuart telling us this when I was doing the surgery. It's been known for a while,
Yeah.
and I remember, and you wonder why sort of, sign I've never seen margarine. This is one of the reasons why, because he told us this, and it was like, oh shit, I can't take margarine. No, thank you.
In fact, you know the story with the Spartumane?
Aspartame.
About Ronald Reagan.
No.
You heard that one?
No.
what's
Well, they were trying to get it legalised, and in America, it was the FDA?
FDA, yeah.
They were like, no. And then they bunged some money to Ronald Reagan so he'd be elected president. And all of a sudden, it got turned around. Like that.
Yes, there's a bit of the history in there about aspartame, because we were looking in the kitchen just now
Yeah.
at the squash that the
And you know the other story? Because I got this from,
the kids are drinking.
I got this from Candice Pert.
It's all.
And this is why I will never drink.
Sorry?
Candice Pert, it was one of her books. There is a woman in jail somewhere in central, in the Midwest, right, for poisoning her husband with formaldehyde. Right? Now, if you drink the stuff, which he did an awful lot of, he just knocked it back. One of the things the body does is it turns it into formaldehyde. Yeah? So he was drinking tons of this stuff, and the body was turning it into formaldehyde. And it got to the point when it went, oh, give up, I die. So there was two things you could do. You could either say, she poisoned her husband with formaldehyde, or actually, drinking this stuff is poisonous. So which way do you think the courts went?
She was obviously charged with murder.
Obviously she's charged with murder, rather than actually calling into question a multi-billion-pound industry. So she's doing life for killing her husband.
Yes, because there are some things at a certain temperature they go.
Yeah.
I think it's over 34 degrees or something that turn poisonous, and obviously the human body's close to that.
Yeah.
So got that from Candice Pert.
Yes.
I've heard of her, I can't think what was
She's Molecules of Emotion.
Oh, that's why. I'm reading that at the moment.
A neurotransmitter.
I find it quite hard, by the way.
She's got some stuff to do with CCK, because that's where I found out what CCK's role first was doing, and what I twigged what was wrong with the young boy I was treating who had organophosphate poisoning. And so I did a kinesiology correction on him for CCK, and he had a waffle of a healing crisis. And I was teaching that weekend, and his mum was on the phone the whole weekend. You can imagine feeling not good. And I kept on saying the usual, oh, that's fine, just let him drink a little bit more water, let him sleep, and he was about 11 then. Thinking, oh, no. And I said, and I remember saying, look, I'm teaching this, and if there's still a problem, let me know on Monday. Because I looked back on what I'd done, and I'd realised that I hadn't gone by the book at all. I'd done a few things sort of like I just must have tested this is what the body wants, I did it, And then Monday, I didn't hear anything, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what's happened? And Tuesday she phoned me up. And she said, sorry I didn't phone yesterday. She said, we couldn't believe it. She said, for the first time in 6 years I got my son back. And that was the beginning of his healing. He still has problems with being able to take in fats. He still has a lot of problems with being able to take in fats, but he does regularly take olive oil and flax oil and things like that now. But so obviously whatever the organophosphates did, they really messed up that little mechanism there. But
Could that mechanism be mucked up in the opposite direction? Whereas in somebody feels full even though they haven't eaten anything?
I would guess so, because if you can go one way, it can go the other. I would have thought so quite easily, that the secretin cholecystokinin trigger gets triggered up too soon.
Much. Yeah.
I mean, they would then lose weight and quite.
Excellent. We'll just something here.
Ties up with anorexia.
I know. I was just thinking. I was wondering if it ties up
Yeah.
with anorexia. You know, is that somebody feels full.
Because Ruth used to say, very quickly she got full.
Yeah.
This is it. This is that we could make it big.
Well, yeah. But it's interesting because you then have the idea is, does the body know which has happened to this boy? Because his body didn't know what to do with CCK. So what I did is I biofed back into the body. This is what CCK is. So it does then make you wonder if you did the same thing with CCK and secretin, or you challenge the body with CCK and secretin for someone who is anorexic, is whether you get a similar response. The body doesn't know what to do with this.
I wonder.
And the way it's dealt with is that intolerance tap from last week.
Yeah.
That's how you teach the body about things that you think it's forgotten what to do. So it's either for foods, but it can be used for any body substance, anything.
Thoughts? As much or not really that, more of a physical.
It's more of a core body library. Thoughts, there is actually easy ways of doing the thoughts. Yeah, it's not so, but it's like when the body something the body doesn't know what to do with. Yeah. It's like, for example, if someone's taking lots and lots of magnesium and calcium or whatever, and was fine on vitamin D and was fine on boron, but was still showing signs of osteoporosis advancing, then you'd actually look to see whether the body knows what to do with magnesium, calcium, boron, vitamin D. And there's actually, it's done an intolerant sort of, I've forgotten, and it's actually not actually using it. So, it's when someone's is eating the right thing, doing the right things, and it's still not, that's when you've got to think, okay, what's the body forgotten? And the body loses stuff like that when it's stressed. Who's not stressed these days, but the more stress people have, the more likely they are to do it. There's also like the familiarity. It's like, for example, it's Bryce's dad his body suddenly decided it didn't want to take any notice of the Parkinson's pharmaceuticals it's on. He needs to be on those, and his body needs to know what to do with them.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things you could do is you could biofeedback it into the system so that the body recognises again what it's meant to be doing in that. Because familiarity to some very strong pharmaceuticals, the body does become, does switch off after a while. It becomes very resistant. It's basically disintolerance. And it's like it needs a refresher. And sometimes with those drugs you can't stay off them a week, which is how you normally do a refresh. You stay off things and then go back on them again. Like with most herbs, it works better that way. But sometimes because of the nature of what you're taking, you can't do that because it's life-threatening if you're off it. So you have to actually encourage the body to find a better way of dealing with it. So that there is a lot of ways you can use that information. Not just in a straight nutritional way, but in other things that the body's dealing with and may or may not become over familiar with.
There's two people I know who've got blood diseases and they're connected to their DNA mutating.
Yeah. I mean, like happens with sickle cell anemia and that sort of thing.
This is late onset.
Late onset.
They developed it in their late 50s.
Yeah.
Both men.
Yeah.
And it's like there was a recessive gene that suddenly becomes switched on by an illness or something.
Yeah.
So that their blood corpuscles, the red corpuscles, they make far too many and they're immature.
Yeah.
And one of them he's having it controlled through chemotherapy drugs, and the other one he's not making enough. He's on drug trials, and he gets wiped out with exhaustion after about 4 weeks.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
But he was on, the only treatment was blood transfusions, and then he had to have special drugs Because you have a build-up in iron in the body
Yeah,
and
it has to
sit in the
say,
brain and the
Yeah,
organs.
yeah.
But I don't know how you go around switching off things or switching them back on.
Well, it's like intolerance tap. It's just a matter of isolating in some way. Like with them, it would be a blood droplet. Because you know whatever it is in the blood droplet. You know, but you'd have to see whether it's appropriate and whether the body would let you run with it. You need energy permission for that sort of stuff.
And for that one, there might be other stuff on the
There
other
might
side.
be an awful lot of
that's-
other side. If the DNA starts playing up, then you're looking at a rather deep level of stress.
And have they tackled it at all?
The thing is that to deal with that stuff is very person-heavy on the support. And there's a lot of people, a lot of money now from various things. They just haven't got the money to start those sorts of processes off with. And that's been the case for some time. I mean, I had clients when I was working where they had that in their background, and they said, basically, the mental health team said, we just can't open that can of worms up because we haven't got the personnel to deal with it.
And that's getting worse as well.
But that's happening more.
I was just going to say, and that was 10 years ago.
So they just keep them on drugs and chemical cosh.
Yeah. And that was 10 years ago. That was the case.
I see a lot of elderly people with high levels of anxiety that tips them into paranoia because it's got worse as they got older. And all they keep doing is increasing the different types of drugs they put them on to control it. Metazepam and there's another one they use, citalopram. They use those two.
You should basically put you to sleep. You know, and you make it very simple. A friend of mine who worked for Weiss and eventually slurped up one of those in a pipette. Knocked her out for a few hours.
Yeah.
Her tongue was really numb.
So there's something nice that we can end on, is
Yeah.
What
are we doing to our elderly people?
Well, this is the trouble is we better sort it out because we're going to be there soon.
Yeah, exactly. Blimey. Gonna get it sorted out now.
So,